again, friends. So this week I've been asked to do a princess fairy tale. I'll be honest, I thought I had already done all of them, but then I looked and nope, there are so many more. I just hadn't heard of them. So this week, travel with me to Italy as together we explore the Canary Prince. There was a king who had a daughter. Her mother was dead, and the stepmother was jealous of the girl and always spoke badly of her to the king. And the maiden defended herself as best she could, but the stepmother was so contrary and insistent that the king, though he loved his daughter, finally gave in. Well, I don't like him. He told the queen to send the girl away, but to some place where she would be comfortable. Ah, so a nice prison! How good of him! For he would never allow her to be mistreated. Have no fear of that, said the stepmother, who then had the girl shut up in a castle in the heart of the forest. To keep her company, the queen selected a group of ladies-in-waiting, ordering them to never let the girl out of the house or even to look out the windows.
Look, she's being mistreated.
Yep. Naturally, they received a salary worthy of a royal household. The girl was given a beautiful room, and all she wanted to eat and drink. The only thing she couldn't do was go outdoors. But the ladies, enjoying so much leisure time and money, thought only of themselves and paid no attention to her. Every now and then the king would ask his wife, "And how is our daughter? What is she doing with herself these days?"
Being miserable.
To prove that she did take an interest in the girl, the queen called on her. The minute she stepped from her carriage, the ladies-in-waiting all rushed out and told her not to worry. The girl was well and happy. The queen went up to the girl's room for a moment. "So, you're comfortable, are you? You need nothing, do you? You're looking well, I see. The country air is doing you good. Stay happy now. Bye-bye!" And off she went. Well, gosh, what a fulfilling conversation! She informed the king she had never seen his daughter so content. On the contrary, always alone in her room, with ladies-in-waiting who didn't so much as look at her. The princess spent her days wistfully at the window. She sat there, leaning on the windowsill, and had she not thought to put a pillow under them, she would have got calluses on her elbows. Yeah, 'cause that's what she's worried about.
What else would she be worried about? It's not like she has a life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is exactly what she's worried about. The window looked out on the forest, and all day long the princess saw nothing but treetops, clouds, and, down below, the hunter's trail. Over that trail one day came the son of a king in pursuit of a wild boar. Nearing the castle known to have been unoccupied for no telling how many years, he was amazed to see washing spread out on the battlements, smoke rising from the chimneys, and open casements. As he looked about them, he noticed a beautiful maiden at one of the upper windows, and smiled at her.
And she got a jump scare because she hadn't seen a male in years.
Ah! What is that? The maiden saw the prince too, dressed in yellow, with hunter's leggings and a gun, and smiling at her, so she smiled back. For a whole hour they smiled, bowed, and curtsied, being too far apart to communicate in any other way. The next day, under the pretext of going hunting, the king's son returned, dressed in yellow, and they stared at each other, this time for 2 hours. In addition to smiles, bows, and curtsies, they put a hand over their hearts and waved handkerchiefs at great length. The third day the prince stopped for 3 hours, and they blew each other kisses.
So he's just standing there for 3 hours staring at her?
Yes.
Disturbing.
Very disturbing. The fourth day he was there, as usual, when, from behind a tree, a witch peeped and began to guffaw. Ho, ho, ho!
Santa?
Ho. Who are you? What's so funny? Snapped the prince. What's so funny? 2 lovers silly enough to stay far apart. Would you know how to get any closer to her, Nanny? Asked the prince.
You could try the door. That's how the ladies in waiting get in.
I like you both, said the witch, and I'll help you. She knocked at the door.
Hey, look, a door!
You're right, that worked. And handed the ladies in waiting a big old book with yellow, smudgy pages, saying it was a gift to the princess, so the young lady could pass the time reading. The ladies took it in to the girl, who opened it at once and read, "This is a magic book. Turn the pages forward, and the man becomes a bird. Turn them back, and the bird becomes a man once more." The girl ran to the window, placed the book on the sill, and turned pages in great haste while watching the youth in yellow standing in the path. Moving his arms, he was soon flapping wings and changed into a canary dressed in yellow as he was. Okay, that's terrifying. Up he soared over the treetops and headed straight for the window, coming to rest on the cushioned sill. The princess couldn't resist picking up the beautiful canary and kissing him. Then, remembering he was a young man, she blushed. But on second thought she wasn't ashamed at all, and made haste to turn him back into a youth. She picked up the book and thumbed backwards through it. The canary ruffled his yellow feathers, flapped his wings, then moved his arms, and once more the youth dressed in yellow with the hunter's leggings who knelt before her declaring, "I love you."
And she declared, "Wow, do you sound awful."
I mean, seriously? Do you even know her name? Could we at least start with, "Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Rupert. Let's get married."
How many wives does Rupert have at this point?
3.
Oh, okay.
By the time they finished confessing all their love for one another, it was evening. Slowly the princess leafed through the book. Looking into her eyes, the youth turned back into a canary. Yeah, that's not something anyone wants to actually see. Perched on the windowsill, then on the eaves, then, trusting to the wind, flew down in wide arcs, lighting on the lower limb of a tree. At that, she turned the pages back in the book, and the canary was a prince once more, who jumped down, whistled for his dogs, threw a kiss towards the window, and continued along the trail out of sight. So every day the pages were turned forward to bring the prince flying up to the window at the top of the tower, then turned backwards to restore his human form, then forward again to enable him to fly away, and finally backward to get him home. Never in their whole life had the 2 young people known such happiness. Or, and I'm just thinking out loud, mind you, you could go to the princess's father and let him know what is going on so he can do something about it. You know, like maybe stop the whole imprisonment.
But that would require communication.
It's true. Communication could win the day.
No, it won't.
One day the queen called on her stepdaughter. She walked about the room saying, "You're all right, aren't you? I see you're a trifle slimmer, but that's certainly no cause for concern, is it? It's true, isn't it? You've never felt better." As she talked, she checked to see that everything was in place. She opened the window and peered out. Here came the prince, in yellow, along the trail with his dogs. "If this silly girl thinks she is going to flirt at the window," said the stepmother to herself, "she has another thought coming to her."
You're a bit late, she already has.
Well. She sent the girl for a glass of water and some sugar, then hurriedly removed 5 or 6 hairpins from her own hair and concealed them in the pillow, with the sharp point sticking straight up. Just in case that doesn't sound that bad, this is the picture from a hairpin back then. This will teach her to lean on the windowsill. the girl returned with water and sugar, but the queen said, "Oh, I'm no longer thirsty. You drink it, my dear. I must be getting back to your father. You don't need anything, do you? Well, goodbye." And she was off. Yeah, I kind of hate her. As soon as the queen's carriage was out of sight, the girl hurriedly flipped over the pages of the book. The prince turned into a canary, flew to the window, and struck the pillow like an arrow. He instantly let out a shrill cry of pain. The yellow feathers were stained with blood. The canary had driven the pins into his breast. He rose with a convulsive flapping, trusting himself to the wind, descended in irregular arcs, and lit on the ground with outstretched wings. Well, that took a sudden dark turn. The frightened princess, not yet fully aware of what had happened, quickly turned the pages back in the hope there would be no wounds when he regained his human form. Alas, the prince reappeared dripping blood from the deep stabs that had rent the yellow garment on his chest, and lay back surrounded by his dogs,
who were very confused because that was just a bird they were going to eat.
At the howling of the dogs, the other humans came to his aid and carried him off on a stretcher of branches. But he didn't so much as glance up at the window of his beloved, who was still overwhelmed with grief and fright. Back at his palace, the prince showed no promise of recovery, nor did the doctors know what to do for him. I don't know. He has these large holes in his chest that could be the problem, but, I don't want to rush to conclusions.
They're student doctors. Give them time.
They're medieval doctors.
Even worse.
Look, he's cut. I tell you what, I'm going to cut him so he bleeds some more, and that'll make him better.
No, get rid of the bad blood. You gotta think like them.
Right. The wounds refused to heal over, and constantly hurt. His father, the king, posted proclamations on every street corner, promising a fortune to anyone who could cure him. But not a soul turned up to try.
Did he threaten death?
That would make less souls turn up. The princess, meanwhile, was consumed with a longing for her lover. She cut her sheets into thin strips, which she then tied to one another in a long, long rope. You're only thinking of doing this now? Seriously?
Yes.
Then one night she let herself down from the high tower and set out on the hunter's trail. But because of the thick darkness and the howls of the wolves, she decided to wait for daylight. Finding an old oak with a hollow trunk, she nestled inside and, in her exhaustion, fell asleep at once. She woke up while it was still pitch dark, under the impression she had heard a whistle. Listening closer, she heard another whistle, then a third and a fourth, after which she saw 4 candle flames advancing. They were 4 witches, coming from the 4 corners of the earth to their appointed meeting under that tree. Through a crack in the trunk, the princess, unseen by them, spied on the 4 crones carrying candles and sneering a welcome to one another. Ah, ah, ah!
Lock up your children! Yes, Salem, we're back!
They lit a bonfire under the tree and sat down to warm themselves and roast a couple of bats for dinner. You can get sick doing that.
No.
Just saying. When they had eaten their fill, they began asking one another what they had seen of interest in the world, and then they answered with 3 really racist remarks, so we'll just move on. I saw the king of this region, who has the sick son nobody can cure, since I alone know the remedy. Ooh, do tell. And what is it? Asked the other witches. In the floor of his room is a loose tile. All one need to do is lift the tile, and there underneath is a phial containing an ointment that would heal every one of his wounds.
How?
Convenient. It was all the princess inside the tree could do not to scream for joy. By this time, the witches had told one another all they had to say, so each went her own way.
When shall we 3 meet again?
Well, I can do next Tuesday.
The princess jumped from the tree and set out in the dawn for the city. At the first second-hand dealers she came to, she bought an old doctor's gown and a pair of spectacles. and knocked at the royal palace. Seeing the little doctor with such scant paraphernalia, the servants weren't going to let him in. But the king said, "What harm could he do my son, who can't be any worse off than he is now?
Almost dead.
True. Let him see what he can do." The sham doctor asked to be left alone with the sick man, and the request was granted. Finding her lover groaning and unconscious in his sickbed, the princess felt like weeping and smothering him with kisses. But she restrained herself because of the urgency of carrying out the witch's directions. She paced up and down the room until she stepped on a loose tile, when she raised and discovered a phial of ointment. With it, she rubbed the prince's wounds, and no sooner had she touched each one with ointment than the wound disappeared completely. Overjoyed, she called the king, who came in and saw his son sleeping peacefully, with the color back in his cheeks and no trace of any wound.
Aside from the blood staining his clothes. Unless it's magic cleaner
on
as
his
well.
skin, and no trace of any wounds on his skin.
There you go.
"Ask for whatever you like, doctor," said the king. "All the wealth in the kingdom is yours." "I wish no money," replied the doctor. Actually, I wish no money," replied the doctor. "Just give me the prince's shield, bearing the family coat of arms, his standard, and his yellow vest that was rent and bloodied." Weird.
Wouldn't it be bent?
Rent. Not bent, rent. Rent is an old-fashioned word that basically means ripped up or, with holes in it. Rent and bloodied. How are you bending his vest?
They can have creases in it.
Upon receiving the 3 items, she took her leave. 3 days later, the king's son was again out hunting. He passed the castle in the heart of the forest, but didn't deign to look up at the princess's window. She immediately picked up the book, leafed through it, and the prince had no choice but change into a canary. He flew into the room, and the princess turned him back into a man. "Let me go," he said. "Isn't it enough to have pierced me with those pins of yours, and caused me so much agony?" The prince, in truth, no longer loved the girl, blaming her for his misfortune. Wow, rude and fickle. On the verge of fainting, she exclaimed, "But I saved your life. I am the one who cured you." "That is not so," said the prince. "My life was saved by a foreign doctor, who asked for no recompense except my coat of arms, my standard, and my bloodied vest."
Like a weirdo.
Like a weirdo. "Here are your coat of arms, your standard, and your vest."
I am the weirdo.
"I am the doctor. The doctor was none other than myself. The pins were the cruel doing of my stepmother." The prince gazed into her eyes, dumbfounded. Never had she looked so beautiful. He fell at her feet, asking her forgiveness and declaring his deep gratitude and love. Seriously fickle. That very evening, he informed his father he was going to marry the maiden in the castle in the forest. "You may only marry the daughter of a king or an emperor," replied his father.
All about that.
"I shall marry the woman who saved my life." So they made preparations for the wedding, inviting all the kings and queens in the vicinity. Also present was the princess's royal father, who had been informed of nothing. Wait, so you know so little about this woman that you didn't even talk to her father? Oh yeah, this will be a successful union.
Maybe she doesn't like her dad for letting her be imprisoned in a tower for however many years.
Well, maybe we should ask her. When the bride came out, he looked at her and exclaimed, "My daughter!" "What?" said the royal host. "My son's bride is your daughter? Why did she not tell us?" "Because," explained the bride, "I no longer consider myself the daughter of a man who let my stepmother imprison me." And she pointed to the queen.
Called it.
Awkward. Learning of all his daughter's misfortune, the father was filled with pity for the girl and with loathing for his wicked wife. Nor did he wait until she was back home to have the woman seized. Thus the marriage was celebrated to the satisfaction and joy of all, with the exception of that wretch. Is it just me, or was that kind of an abrupt ending?
No dancing in red-hot shoes?
Ooh, or throwing into a barrel and putting the barrel to sea? Man, they have to come up with a better way to get this woman. Well, That's it. We come to the end of another story. It's time for us to thank Pixabay.com, who is the reason all of our videos look so good. And also to remind you about the little train that will come by that says things about commenting and liking and sharing and all that good old YouTube stuff. I would also like to say hi to the little girls who asked for the princess story. Hello! And, of course, I'd like to thank you, my friends, for being here every week and for joining me for all my silly stories. I love you all. And now for a special thank you to our Patreon friends. Bye.
Ha ha ha!